Hi guys, welcome to Career Goals with T. I am T and I like to talk about anything that has to do with careers, self-development and our social being as a whole. If you are new here, thank you so much for joining me in this video, and I hope you do enjoy this topic for today and going forward. Please do subscribe and like and share my video. I'll really appreciate that. So for the next couple of videos, I will be diving into the topic of unemployment in South Africa. So I have been, ever since I've started this channel, I've always been preaching finding your career, a career that suits your personality, finding a career that aligns with you and all of that. However, I realized that the message I'm trying to drive, yes, it is relevant, yes, it is important, but we are facing a very difficult and challenging situation in South Africa, which is unemployment. So I thought of diving deep in this topic and understand why we have such high unemployment rate in South Africa. And as I think I've mentioned a couple of times, that I do love research, so I just went into the rabbit hole and researched, and as I'm researching, new information comes up and I research about the new information and so forth. So I'll be doing like a series just tackling and understanding the unemployment in South Africa and how it challenges everyone, and what are the things in an ideal world would help us combat this challenge. What are the things that we need to look out for? There will be voting season soon. People will be coming with their manifestos. So I just want to highlight things that we as the youth need to ask if we get the chance to ask these questions. And if anyone is sharing their manifestos, these are the things, some of the things that we need to hear in their manifestos. If you're having difficulties of choosing your political party or whatever, but these are some of the things that we need to hear from our government. These are some of the things that we need to be on the lookout for when we are making our choices when it comes to voting for the next party or whatever it is. But yeah, this has nothing to do with politics. It's just me trying to educate myself and educate you guys if you are keen to understand why we have such high unemployment rate in South Africa. So I will be reading my questions, and these answers are from Google, obviously, and I wish I could have a person from government, a person from the private sector to actually answer some of these questions in their own perspective, because obviously whatever I have here is just basic logic. There's a lot of other factors that will affect whatever I'll be talking about. So but these are just answers that Google has for me, and I went through different websites and all that, so I just compiled whatever information they had. So I'll just create a playlist and I'll have like a series of videos talking about unemployment. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So my first question was, why do we have high unemployment rate in South Africa? So number one is structural economic issues. The economy has experienced stagnant growth, averaging only 0.7% annually over the last decade, which is insufficient to absorb new entrants into the labor market. Number two, skills mismatch and education. A significant gap exists between skills required by employers and those of job seekers. About 50% of unemployed people have an education level lower than grade 12. Third, youth unemployment crisis. Young people face immense barriers, including lack of work experience and poor quality of education, with youth unemployment rates often exceeding 50%. Legacy of apartheid. Spatial planning continues to marginalize workers, facing many to live far from economic centers, increasing transport costs and limiting job opportunities. That is real. And next is the declining key sectors. Traditional job-heavy sectors like mining, manufacturing have declined due to resource depletion, aging infrastructure, and frequent labor disputes. And then a regulatory environment. Stringent labor laws and red tapes are often cited as barriers of hiring and reducing the flexibility for small businesses to expand. Lastly is the energy and infrastructure. Unreliable power supply, load shedding, and logistics bottlenecks have hindered economic productivity and investments. So those are some of the contributing factors of why we have such high unemployment rate in South Africa. So I went on to ask who is accountable for easing the pain points of unemployment in South Africa? Because I just wanted to understand, okay, we have all these problems, but who is accountable for combating all those problems? Like, who do we ask? Who should be easing these pain points, and like, what's the plan? So accountability for unemployment in South Africa is a shared multi-pronged responsibility involving the national government, the private sector, and civil society, with the Department of Employment and Labor, DEL, acting as the primary state body. Minister of the Department of Employment is Noma Nkosazana Meth. I didn't even know that. I didn't know until this research. So if you also didn't know, Minister of the Department of Employment and Labor is Noma Nkosazana Meth. So while the government is tasked to provide conducive environment for job creation, the private sector is widely recognized as the primary engine for sustainable employment. I have notes in case you're wondering. So here's the breakdown of accountability for addressing unemployment. Number one in the South African government, which is provincial, national, and municipal. So the Department of Employment of Labor, they oversee labor legislations, employment services, and unemployment insurance fund, UIF. Number two is the Public Employment Services. This is a division of the Department of Employment responsible for registering work seekers, providing career counseling, and placing job seekers. I have never heard of this service. If you have, please do share your experience with them, because I, as a person who is very in tune with the topic of career guidance, I have never heard of these services, career guidance, career counseling, and placing job seekers, unless I'm misinformed or whatever it is. I think it's their responsibility to be able to make sure they reach relevant people, they reach the youth. So for the fact that I didn't know about these services, but either way. Number three is the Presidential Employment Stimuli, PE, which is a major initiative that has created over 1.7 million work and livelihood opportunities, e.g. school assistance. I remember getting the school assistance. I was almost part of the program, but fortunately for me, I got employed. And then policy reform and infrastructure, responsible for addressing energy, water, and transport backlogs to attract investment. Maybe I'm not watching the news, but these services, they are foreign. I don't know any of these. And small business support, which is the National Youth Agency, NYDA, and other entities are responsible for fostering entrepreneurship and small business growth. I do know of NYDA, and I can't really say much. I think I have, back in 2021, I have tried to be part of the program, and I think that time I was trying to get a bursary. I think I do know some of the people who got the NYDA bursary, so at least them I do know. So at least. The second people that are responsible is the private sector. The private sector employs roughly about 73 to 80% of South Africa's workforce and is critical for long-term sustainable job growth. Bonage, the responsibility here is job creation and expansion. Businesses are expected to expand operations, invest, and hire new staff. Okay, but how are they expected to do all of that if infrastructure is falling apart and there's all these legislations and regulations? Okay. And then skills development through sectoral education and training authorities, or SETA, businesses contribute to training and learnership. And then internships and training, providing work experience to young people via initiatives like Youth Employment Services, which is the YES program. I do know a lot of businesses like VW and many others that do have the YES program. So supply chain access, making procurement opportunities accessible to small and medium enterprise SMEs. And then lastly, and the third people that are also responsible are the social partners and other entities, which are the National Economic and Development and Labor Council, NEDLAC. Bona, they facilitate consensus building between government, labor, businesses, and community organizations on economic and labor policies. Civil society and education institution, Bona, they are responsible for aligning skills training with the needs of the labor market to reduce the skills mismatch. I've never heard of those services either. Then why do you still have such high skills mismatch if these people are doing their job? I'm sorry, we are calling a spade right now because we are facing a crisis and no one is willing to help us out. Everyone is like, yeah, so we're calling a spade. Like we haven't heard of the services, we haven't seen them in work. So who do we ask? So after understanding the contributors of unemployment and the people who are responsible and accountable for easing the pain points, I went on to try and understand what would be the advisable action plan in simple terms and most basic logic to solve unemployment in South Africa. So based on the latest data, Q1 2025 and expert analysis, solving unemployment in South Africa requires a back-to-basis approach that focuses on economic growth, reducing business barriers, and fixing the skills mismatch. So, simple action plan based on fundamental economic logic. Number one is to make it easier to start and grow a business, which to reduce the red tapes. The logic behind this, small and medium business enterprises, SMEs, are the biggest creators of jobs and they are stifled by bureaucracy. The action would to simplify company registration, reducing licensing requirements, and make it easier for small businesses to hire. The goal here is to allow mom and pop shops, startups, and informal businesses to grow into hiring companies without heavy, expensive regulations. Secondly, match the skills to real-world jobs, which is the education reform. The logic here is that many job seekers have skills that companies do not need, while businesses struggle to find specific talent. That's the skills mismatch that we keep talking about. The action here would shift focus from purely theoretical education to vocational training, technical trades, and STEM subjects. And I do agree with this because we see a lot of people that go to university for academic professions without actually realizing that you can't really get a job with this qualification. It's just a theoretical qualification. Whereas in technicons and colleges where they do vocational training, like your millwrights, your artisans, your fitter and turning, boiler makers and stuff like that. And we see a lot of demand when it comes to those professions. And I think we really need to start encouraging our younger siblings, encouraging the people that are behind us that yes, it's nice to go to university and stuff like that, but think about what you're going to do after. While you can just try and acquire a skill like being a boiler maker or so forth, and there you definitely know that you do have a job after studying. I think that's another topic we need to go deep into and understand some of the trainings that are provided and where it will land you and how it can land you a job and stability. Also, with the skills mismatch, the government is encouraged to incentivize companies to provide more internships and apprenticeship learning by doing opportunities. Then number 3 is incentivize hiring young people, like as mentioned previously, which is wage subsidies. The logic here is the youth unemployment rate is exceptionally high, over 60% for 15 to 24-year-olds, often due to lack of work experience. The action here is to strengthen and expand the employment tax incentive, ETI, which allows companies to pay less tax if they hire young, inexperienced workers. The goal is to lower the cost for employers to take a risk on new and untrained employees, which makes sense. Then number 4 is to build infrastructure to create immediate jobs. The logic here is large-scale building projects create jobs for unskilled and semi-skilled labor immediately. The action would to invest heavily in infrastructure, roads, reliable electricity, water, and broadband to boost economic activity. The goal is to use public-private partnerships to fix infrastructure, which also encourages foreign investment. And then lastly, improve job seeking access. The logic here is for job seekers who often live far from work opportunities struggle with transport costs, and that's the reality we have. The action here is to use digital platforms to connect job seekers directly to vacancies in their areas. The action is to develop one-stop job centers in townships and rural areas. So if you make it cheaper to hire, simpler to start a business, and more relevant to learn a skill, you increase the demand for labor. Makes sense? For me, these definitely make sense, and you could have more people that are implementers than talkers in our government. And I think these are some of the points that are very important to note and understand when you are voting for a party, when you are voting for your next government. That is it for this video. I don't want to drag it too long. There's still a lot to cover, but please do think about the things that I have just mentioned. Think about some of the things that you can do within your own circle. If you want to combat the high unemployment crisis which we are all facing, I think we also need to educate ourselves on what are some of the challenges and what are some possible solutions for all these problems. Thank you so much for tuning in this video, and I hope you do watch the next one. Let's understand why we have unemployment and try and combat this challenge.